All right. So I think we all know that, there's a lot of contaminants of concern out there that are coming into our treatment plants that we'd like to remove before discharging them. So, the host, all the familiar contaminants, nitrates, ammonia, phosphorus, bacteria, pathogens, viruses, synthetic organic compounds, and heavy metals and pharmaceuticals. So I'm not going to give you a quiz on what this graph is saying. I don't really expect you to actually read it. I can barely read it. My point is, this is a meta-study of studies looking at contaminants coming from wastewater treatment plants around the world, looking at pharmaceuticals. And it's a logarithmic scale. So, and this is, in particular, one class, the analgesics and anti-inflammatories. And you can see they're getting some hits here. Pharmaceuticals are coming through our treatment plants. So are antibiotics coming through our treatment plants, getting discharged into waterways. And lastly, there's a whole range of antidepressants, antidiabetics, beta blockers, you name it. There's a lot of things coming through these systems. And, and we're not really accounting for these very well in our current regulatory environment. Here's the difference. This is more of a singular study done in the Great Lakes. And what you're seeing, mainly look at the blue bars, kind of the royal blue there. And that's the measurement at the outfall from the treatment plant. And it's an activated sludge system. And I should have mentioned that the last slide, that was all from activated sludge systems. So, and here they developed a risk quotient. So what that means is basically a ratio of what they're finding coming out of the pipe, what level, and then below that number, so divided by the level that they feel would be harmful to aquatic ecosystems. So naturally, if it's above 0, it can be harmful. If it's above 1, there's more concern. They call it, a higher risk. Because, and so there's numbers there above 100, above 10. So kind of a kludgy, but a risk quotient there. But it gives you an idea that they are finding these things coming out into our waterways, and they're not really being well accounted for. Something else that needs to be mentioned here, and this is looking at these on an individual basis. So what about the synergistic effects between these pharmaceuticals here and between themselves, between them and pesticides and heavy metals and other things that may be getting discharged into our waterways? So that doesn't even account for synergistic effects, which could be significant. All right. Thanks, Lou, for this slide. I don't know if he wants it up there. I didn't really ask him. I asked him if he could use some information from a report he did on some work he did on Whidbey Island up in Washington State. And so this is a range of heavy metals they looked at, and they tried some phytoremediation on that. But the number on the left side there is the effluent coming out of the treatment plant that they were dosing their phytoremediation phyto boxes with. So, but you can see things like copper, pretty high levels coming out of that treatment plant, and that is especially harmful to aquatic life. Lead, tin, zinc. So, there's some high numbers there. And then, for some of these, phytoremediation worked well. For some, didn't work at all, just kind of gave varying results. And some things like arsenic, which is found in the native soils there, actually went up. Doesn't mean we ought not do it, but it did indicate that there was arsenic coming from the soils that were used in the phyto boxes. All right, so looking at mechanisms for removal. So here, here's a tree soil system And so I want you all to think of this as a full system, and Lou kind of talked about this earlier today, so I won't get too much detail. I hadn't planned to either. But there's all these ways that we can remove contaminants, so metabolize them. So down with the mycorrhizal fungi, they could metabolize some of the contaminants and remove them. They can make them more available for the plant to do that. They can better adsorb onto soil. They can absorb to the soil system and be held there, and then maybe over time degrade or be taken up later. There's also interaction with the whole community of bacteria and protozoa, all kinds of other parts of that ecosystem. So it's a full ecosystem. The drill. So here are the kind of the 6 major ways of contaminant removal or immobilization. So I can't read this to you because Joe Whitworth this morning said I can't read my slides, so I won't. You all can read. A lot of words there. But, so anyways, you can read his book, and it's all there. And then we have to look at, so we look at the plants. Some species of poplar do better than others with certain heavy metals. So we look at all these uptake mechanisms and things that affect contaminant removal. So the chemical properties of the contaminant, the availability of that contaminant to be taken up. Sometimes, in some highly degraded systems, they add chelating agents to help remove make the metals more available to be taken up. So again, I want to emphasize that this is a system, and that when we go from the surface of the soil, the biological activity there, of course, is very high. And as you move down in the profile, it actually reduces fairly exponentially until you get to below the root zone. But that said, those roots, of course, are a great host to the mycorrhizal fungi, great symbiotic relationship there. The roots are providing exudates that the fungi use, that other bacteria and protozoa use. So it's a full ecosystem that we have to think about. It's more than just the plant. So here is a fungal sheath around some root hairs and roots. And then here's a more fleshed out version showing all of the little striated mycorrhizal fungi hairs. And so you can think of your wastewater moving through that and effectively helping process that with that community. And here's an electron microscope version looking at that of the hairs and the mycorrhizal fungus. So I just kind of wanted to wrap up with a few key points and move on to our other speakers. Like I say, we have some great expertise here. So, the main point is, there's a lot more in wastewater than we're testing for. And it's getting into our environment, and we don't know how these things interact with each other or with us in the long term, how they bioaccumulate. So there's a lot that we don't know. And so by putting it out there and not effectively treating it, we're playing a bit of Russian roulette, I feel. Which leads to the second point of, in the long term, in the sustainable future, our current basic technologies that we're using in most communities isn't great for the long term because of the reasons above. And I think we all know there's a lot more to phytoremediation than just what's happening into the plants. And but in the long term, this can be a cost-effective way to manage our wastewater. It's kind of a win-win situation. Producing products that we need energy, we need wood, and a lot of those other products that were listed this morning. So, and of course, it reduces our costs. So that's the great thing about this forum, and hopefully future forums, that we need more people in this room helping to move this forward. So this is a great start, and we hope it expands because we all want to have a sustainable society. All right.